Welcome to Micropreneur Accelerator. I'm the Micropreneur Accelerator. My name is Nina Sunday. I want to tell you a story about a time that I went to a workshop on professional development. It was all about energy. And unbeknownst to me, there was a surprise waiting for me. So we're doing this workshop. There's about 30 people. It was held on the same day as a health expo. And they said, do you want to stay back and attend this workshop? And I thought, oh, well, great idea. So he's talking about energy and goals and growing and evolving. And he said, now everybody, please stand up and hold out your hands, close your eyes, and I have a surprise for you. So I could hear movement as he went round the room. And then suddenly I felt movement in my hand and something had been placed in my hand. It felt like a stick. And he said, okay, everybody, now open your eyes. And in fact, what was in my hand, and I'm going to reach over my desk here because I've got it here as a little example. What was in my hands was an arrow. And if you're watching the video, you'll see the arrow. So we're holding this in our hands and he said, okay, you're going to break the arrow. Now, I've heard of this workshop before, of this process before. And I went, I've never wanted to do this. I was not attracted to this. But Tony Robbins said, if you think you can't, then you must. And I decided then and there, I wasn't going to say no to the challenge. I was going to accept it. And not only that, I wasn't going to be one of the last. I was going to be one of the first. So I didn't want to be the very first. So we watched what the first person did. And then I said, I'll go next. And the arrow actually has a metal tip. And it's quite long. And the idea was you put the arrow up to your throat and you put the end against the wall and you press into the wall and you break the arrow. Now, what happens when you find out what the process is inside yourself? You decide ahead of time whether you're going to be able to break the arrow or you won't be able to break the arrow. You don't necessarily do it consciously. You do it subconsciously. I'm either in, yes, I'm in the break the arrow group, or no, I'm probably in the can't break the arrow group. And I was in the latter. I went, I probably can't break the arrow, so I'll give it a go and then I can give up. And so I went over, put the metal tip to my throat, and the facilitator is standing next to you. He's quite full of care. And I pressed into the wall. And of course, fear took over and I flinched back. And he said, Nina, you don't have to break the arrow. You only have to bend it. The arrow breaks itself. And I went, I can do that. I can bend the arrow and we'll see if it breaks itself. So that's what I did. And this time, because my goal was not to break it, but to bend it, and I could see it bending as it went into the wall, and then suddenly, snap, it was in two pieces. I really surprised myself. And ever since then, I've taken the message of, you don't have to break the arrow, you only have to bend it. The arrow breaks itself. Now, I'd like to hear from you what you think are the lessons from that. And in fact, if you've ever participated in a breaking the arrow workshop, let me know. What was it like for you and what was your lesson? I've got a couple of lessons out of that. One is, when you think a project is too daunting to start, just start. I remember when I was at film school, one of my favourite one-page checklists was the 42 steps to creating a feature film. We're talking a Hollywood blockbuster, okay, a feature film. But there it was, all in one page, 42 steps. And I went, well, that seems very doable. It's like all mapped out. Now, what I have found in life, if you've got a project, if you map out all the steps, if you think there's 20 steps to completion, somehow the universe comes along and just collapses, say, 5 of the steps. It is as if by magic. So I'm here to tell you that when you have a project, you don't have to complete the end task. You don't have to start with the end task in mind. You start with the first achievable goal, achieve that, and suddenly you'll be propelled on your way. I've since been able to connect that to the 80-20 rule or the Pareto principle. Now, in another episode, I'll give you the full story of Vilfredo Pareto and the 80-20 rule and his thesis that he published in 1897 that was the 80-20 rule, but also now is called the Pareto principle. In business, businesses often say 80% of your turnover comes from 20% of your clients. And of course, it depends on your business. If your business serves one client, well, that's not going to be true. But say you have multiple clients, you've got the big clients that order over and over, or they do big orders at one time, and then you've got all the little transactional clients. That's the 80-20 rule there. Richard Koch wrote a wonderful book on the 80-20 rule, and he gives lots of different examples, you know, of 80% of car accidents are caused by 20% of all drivers. Lots of little examples like that. You walk on 20% of your carpets 80% of the time, and 80% of the carpets in your home are walked on 20% of the time. There's lots of little examples like that. And what I like about what Richard Koch says is people think it's a 50-50 world. It's not. It's an 80-20 rule. The lesson here is people often stop short before they even start a project, thinking that it's going to be overwhelming. And honestly, I nearly didn't do this podcast. I mean, I wanted to do it in 2017. It wasn't until 2020 and the silver lining of COVID that I suddenly had the extra time. But I also had a different idea of what it would be when I was planning it, thinking, oh, it's going to be hard. In fact, I really thought the one I was going to start is the one I'm doing now, Micropreneur Accelerator. But instead, I did an interview series of Manage Self-Lead Others, and now it has a life of its own. We're at episode 128. I get emails from podcast agencies all around the world pitching their guest to appear on my podcast. It's in the top 10% of podcasts. So if you're interested in learning how to lead people, do go and have a listen at Manage Self-Lead Others. But this little podcast is solo. It's where I get to share my creative past, my stories, my simple tweaks, one simple idea that will help you just change. If you can just do the plus 1% marginal gains approach, which is improve one little thing a day, don't do everything by habit, but do one little thing differently that's better. Let me ask you a question. Do you ever wish you could be part of an uplifting and inspiring community of practice to support your evolution and growth from solopreneur to micropreneur and beyond? Well, if so, I invite you to join me in Micropreneur Accelerator membership. It is the best place, and I love it so much. We are creating such a safe and supportive, inclusive community with the exclusive opportunity to receive group coaching with me on our live calls twice each month. And everybody gets something out of that. Connect with me on LinkedIn or Facebook and ask for my calendar to make a time for a complimentary 15-minute get-to-know. During that meeting, you can tell me the issues you're wanting to solve first. Then we can see if the Micropreneur Accelerator membership is a good fit for you. My links are in the show notes, plus find me on LinkedIn or Facebook. Until next time, enjoy good things.